Hello, Dominique. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on Smarter Markets here at IETA's North America Climate Summit 2023.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really glad you made time for us. I was hoping you could start off by just telling us a little bit about your company and how it fits in to the carbon markets.
Sure. So I work for a company called Vertree Partners. We are an integrated carbon platform. We start by advising clients on their climate strategy. We then develop, finance, and co-design projects, bring them to fruition, and integrate those products into carbon strategies for corporate climates to make those net zero targets.
Terrific. And I was curious, obviously this year's been a challenging year in the voluntary carbon markets. A lot of news in the media, some challenges to the reputation and the growth, which over the past few years has been very strong. I'm curious, how is that affecting what you're doing in the carbon markets?
It means a lot of hand-holding with clients, explaining the criticism, why that criticism has effectively arisen, and the mechanics behind the standards that exist today and the actions that standards are trying to do to address this criticism to move forward in a constructive manner.
That's great. And when you look at, one of the most interesting things for me coming to these conferences is hearing all the conversations in the hallways, hearing the conversations outside of the main rooms. No offense, I know you moderated a panel earlier this morning, but I just was curious, were there certain ideas that you wanted to come and share with the other participants? And are there any ideas that you've heard yet that you kind of want to take back with you?
With regards to certain ideas, I think, there's a lot of uncertainty within the voluntary carbon market, especially right now. And I think we need clarity and consensus amongst, the actors that exist today so that we can actually move forward and scale the market. That's the most important thing that we actually need to do. And these projects take time to come online. We're talking about growing trees or potentially distributing cook stoves or, depending on the project action, they take time. They take time to distribute, account for, and to actually scale to the level that we need to meet potentially, under SBTI, some of the initiatives out there that corporates have signed up to. We need those volumes, and we need them yesterday, not today, because it does take time. And unless we get that consensus so that we can move forward, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, or we're going to have a last-minute rush to get these projects off the ground to meet these targets.
Right. Time is such a great thing to bring up because, as you said, these are very long lead time projects. So you start today, you get the benefits 5, 10, 15 years or more down the line. And of course, people don't like uncertainty. And it feels like there's been a lot of uncertainty generated this year. Are you seeing people pull back instead of move forward?
I think there's been a systematic change with the way that corporates now look at projects, look at entry into the market. Existing corporates are taking a much more conservative approach. They're doing a lot more due diligence on the individual projects and looking at them then as a long-term investment solution. I think newer entries are taking their time. Unfortunately, they're not getting potentially the clarity that they need over, does it need a CCP label? Does it need to be Corsair aligned? Does it need a corresponding adjustment? These are questions that I frequently get on a daily basis from corporates that, just don't have any clarity over, if I achieve this, what can I actually claim?
Right. And so we need a little bit more certainty or a little less ambiguity to get the action to do things on time. You also mentioned a very important word, scale. And I'm curious, what do you think we need to get some of these projects to scale to make the impact that we need to see? Is it something around the standards, technology, tools, something else?
I think technology and tools will come. They're being developed, and that'll play a big part in the evolution of the methodologies, the projects, and hopefully help scale. I think what we're key to missing today is effectively corporate buyers and people that actually retire those carbon credits, take them out of existence, and long-term commitment, and I think ultimately, as you rightly said, it's the policy, it's the ambiguity over those future, I guess, future clarity over what I can use and what I can't use that is prompting that sort of, risk, sort of not risk approach, but, cautious approach.
Right. So we need the demand.
We need demand. We need demand. And I think demand is there. I think it's just a matter of education and getting management on board. A lot of sort of actors are trying to figure out, who's actually going to pay for this? Am I going to pay for this? Am I going to pass it on? Is it a cost? Where does that cost sit? Is it taxable? Is it, non-taxable? There's a lot of questions that interplay into that strategy. And it's not simple.
Right. No, not at all. And when you talk with, the corporates that'll be the drivers of this demand, hopefully, what sort of things do you think that if they understood better, they'd be willing to move faster and scale more quickly?
I think it's a good question. I think effectively, I think claims is a huge part. So what claim they can actually make is a big sort of, I think, driving point, because right now you've got ambiguity around carbon neutral, carbon compensated, what am I supposed to use and what does that actually mean? I think SBTI have done a great job of sort of SBTI net zero, and we've got that sort of, clarity over I must reduce in the first instance, which we totally advocate. That is the right strategy. And I can use my 10%. And I know that, in an industry where it's hard to abate, shipping, aviation industry, they're going to need that 10%. So they can work towards that 10% target. But ultimately, how do I then deal with the rest of it? And does that come under beyond value chain mitigation? How can I contribute? What can I use to contribute? And it is evolving. There's no question it is evolving. It just needs to evolve a little bit quicker.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
My pleasure. Thanks.